In Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 262, Yuta, Gojo, and Sukuna go head to head. Jujutsu Kaisen took over the cover of the magazine this week. We have Yuji in the center delivering a black flash, surrounded by all of Jujutsu High's forces in this battle against Sukuna. I'm happy whenever Jujutsu Kaisen is on the cover because it's always a reminder that Yuji is the main character. We also have the cover art for Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 27. It's the good old comedian Takaba striking a pose that seems to be inspired by the first volume of the legendary gag manga Bobobo Bobo Bobo. Drop a comment if you're old enough to remember that series. Now, Gege left us with a very unfortunate author's comment this week. Quote, "I'm not feeling the best right now. My condition is a bit bizarre. Sorry for the various inconveniences." Listen, I'm not a doctor, but I suspect that they may have overworked the poor guy. On top of anything else he may have going on in his life, they gave this man the Oda special. He had to draw the cover of the magazine, draw the cover of the latest volume, which of course has to include volume extras, complete this newest chapter, and give us a color page of Yuta, Gojo, and Sukuna. One that reads, "The King of Curses and the Prodigy of the Modern Era." The two face off in their altered forms. The manga will be on a 2-week break, and with all this in mind, that makes total sense to me. The King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna, and the special grade sorcerer Yuta inside the body of the strongest Gojo simultaneously activated their domain expansions. Yuji and Todo could only shield themselves from the onrush of dust and debris centered on a single shrunken barrier. And sadly, that's as much as we're gonna get from our main character in this chapter. Yuji was doing his thing with all those black flashes and kept building up momentum. He even had the tragic death of a brother moment. Then Todo showed up like Jack Black with a wacky instrument and stole the show. And now, Yuta showed up with the body that holds this entire show on his back, even in death. So it might still be a couple of months before we see Yuji properly take center stage again. The various aspects of Sukuna's domain were far less developed than usual. The shrunken barrier was the counter that Gojo came up with to go against Sukuna's domain. Normally, such a small barrier wouldn't be possible. Envisioning something too small to hold yourself and the enemy would usually cause it to collapse. But due to his experience in the prison realm, Gojo had no trouble picturing such a confined space. Yuta knew that he would only have 3 minutes before Malevolent Shrine wouldn't pose a threat to the outside of his barrier. And Yuta knows to worry about that aspect because it's how Sukuna previously countered Gojo's counter. And he knows to bet on 3 minutes thanks to Mei keeping track of how long Gojo's miniaturized barrier was able to last. Yuta's switch training partner was Gojo himself. By preemptively switching bodies with Gojo, thanks to Wee spatial transference curse technique, Yuta's body was able to remember certain techniques. This helped him improve his barrier techniques tremendously. The silver lining of that one-of-a-kind prison realm experience has been inherited by Yuta. Some of this might sound a bit confusing since Yuta isn't in his own body at the moment, but because he's still within the 5-minute time frame, that sort of stuff is still relevant. If, and more likely when, Yuta ends up staying in Gojo's body, I wonder if we'll see any changes based on this whole body memory stuff. So far, it doesn't seem like Gojo's body came with any innate instruction manuals. Considering Sukuna's current state, Yuta was confident that he'd be able to stall for all 3 minutes like Gojo did. This was the same inexplicable trick that Gojo pulled back in Chapter 227. At the time, Yuta was especially fascinated by Gojo's ability to use reverse curse technique to heal his curse technique, which was still on cooldown. That sort of thing was supposed to be impossible, so Yuta made sure to pay extra attention. This could actually be huge. When Yuta and the others discussed the 5-minute time limit on his possession of Gojo's body, they hadn't seen Gojo do the impossible just yet. Somehow managing to apply this process to Rika as his curse technique may at the very least serve as an extension of sorts. Sukuna had some tricks up his sleeve too. He got rid of the 99-second time limit in exchange for shrinking Malevolent Shrine's effective range to just the outline of Yuta's domain. Yuta's plan was to use the 3 minutes to break Sukuna down to the point where using Malevolent Shrine would be impossible. The exact same move that Gojo pulled off last time. However, Sukuna doesn't believe he needs 3 minutes. He intends to destroy Unlimited Void, therefore expanding his effective range. With that, he'd finally be able to clear the board and get rid of everyone. Yuta sprung into action first, but before he could really do anything, Sukuna showed up faster than he could blink. With his handless upper arm, Sukuna dropped Yuta's arm while grinning and preparing a fist. The king began pummeling the limitless prodigy. Yuta realized with wide eyes and a fist to the gut that Sukuna got past infinity with domain amplification. He hadn't considered the possibility of Sukuna activating it at the same time as domain expansion. Sukuna was pleased by this. Meimei's crows weren't able to gather this bit of intel because it happened inside a domain. Gojo discovered this fact while in the midst of a similar hand-to-hand exchange. As the winner of the original fight, Sukuna doesn't mind this matchup at all. Even back then, Gojo took note of the fact that Sukuna was getting used to the flow of things. So far, Yuta seems to just be embarrassing himself in this fight. He is not a generational boxer like Gojo was. Simply wielding the same weapon doesn't inherently make you just as dangerous. We then have a drop of water hit the ground. The Queen of Curses, Rika, is crying. So to make matters worse, Yuta isn't just getting whooped. He's getting whooped in front of his girl while she cries. We then see Rika's full manifestation clutching onto the injured body of Yuta. Now, is this in the past, or is it inside Yuta's soul or something? He's clearly injured, but that doesn't totally clear things up for me. But either way, it doesn't really matter for the moment. Yuta and Rika will only be together for 5 minutes. After that, Yuta will either live as Gojo forever, last a little while longer than the 5 minutes, or die immediately. But no matter the outcome, it seems like Rika won't be able to stay with him, at least not in the same capacity as before. But maybe there's a loophole of some sort that would allow Rika to become an independent curse spirit. And having access to the Queen of Curses while being Gojo sounds overpowered. Thinking about things objectively, Yuta more than likely is not going to die. I don't really think it would be worth it narratively at this point. We just learned that Yuta might actually be a descendant of 2 legendary sorcerers that historically hated each other. That is way too interesting for nothing to come out of it. It could also mean that there are many aspects of Yuta's capabilities that we haven't seen just yet. We receive a shot of Yuta's closed eyes. It's a bit more scribbly than usual, so Gege was probably at his limit here. And I'm not sure if this has any particular meaning just yet. Although this chapter was short, Gege still managed to add a bit of charm to this rehashed scenario. Even though he's in Gojo's body, the facial expressions and appearance of the character's eyes are very Yuta-like. When Gojo fought Sukuna, whenever things got tough, Gojo pretty much just said screw it and did something ridiculous. Yuta is a far more tactical and careful fighter. If we continue this trend of redoing things from the original battle, it'll be interesting to see how Yuta responds differently to similar scenarios. I still have high hopes for Yuta, but I am curious how you guys may be feeling about his performance so far and where you think he'll be going very soon. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.